Have you ever walked into a room and felt the air shift, like unseen forces were quietly measuring you? Sometimes power doesn't shout, it whispers. It hides in charm, silence, or a smile that isn't real. Most people fight noise with noise and lose before the battle begins. But there's another way. Stay with me, and you'll see how precision defeats every power play. As we step into the first chapter, picture this: walking into a room where every smile hides a motive, every silence hums with calculation. You sense it before a word is spoken. The air shifts, faces arrange themselves into masks. Something inside you whispers, "Be careful." And yet, you can't quite name what you feel. That's how most power plays begin, not with confrontation, but with energy. You see, control rarely announces itself. It tests you first, through small gestures, through tone, through someone pretending not to notice you or noticing you a little too much. That's how the game starts. And the greatest mistake people make is thinking there isn't one. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They believed that the battlefield of life isn't fought on the outside, it unfolds in perception. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." The wise man doesn't rush into the noise of human conflict. He studies the pattern, he learns the rhythm, only then does he move. Imagine this. You walk into a meeting. Someone greets you with exaggerated praise. You always have the best ideas. It sounds flattering, but there's an edge to it. Later, when you share a thought, they dismiss it with a laugh. Well, maybe not this time. Everyone chuckles. You feel that sting in your chest. That's not humor. That's a test. They wanted to see if you'd defend yourself, if you'd react, if your calm was only for show. Most people fail this test because they rush to prove their worth. But the Stoic doesn't need to prove. He sees the move for what it is, a bait, a push for emotional surrender. He doesn't meet it with anger or words. He meets it with stillness. In war, the first to swing the sword is rarely the victor. The victor is the one who reads the opponent before the first strike. Miyamoto Musashi, the warrior philosopher whose way mirrored Stoicism, once wrote, "Perception is strong and sight is weak." What he meant was simple: your eyes see faces, but your awareness sees motives, and awareness wins battles long before they begin. I've watched people lose entire careers, relationships, and self-respect because they couldn't see the pattern. They walked into traps thinking they were conversations. They mistook manipulation for honesty, performance for friendship, control for care. The Stoic trains himself to see these layers, not to become suspicious, but to stay awake. Suspicion closes you off. Awareness frees you. Here's the paradox: the more awake you become, the calmer you feel. Because now you're not reacting to every motion around you, you're reading it. You're not thrown by the storm because you can see the direction of the wind. You understand that not every challenge deserves combat. Some only require observation. There's a story I often remember from the writings of Epictetus. A man once insulted him in public, shouting that he was a fool. Epictetus smiled and replied, "You may not know me well enough for that." Then he walked away. That was it. No anger, no defense, just awareness. He knew the man's goal wasn't truth, it was reaction, and by refusing to play, Epictetus won the game without lifting a finger. That's the lesson. The moment you recognize the hidden game, you've already won half of it. You begin to notice how people use silence to dominate, humor to belittle, or sympathy to control. You start reading tone, not words, posture, not smiles, timing, not sentences. You start seeing what the Stoics called appearances, the illusions people project to hide their own fears. It doesn't mean you stop trusting. It means you trust differently. You trust what people do when no one's watching, not what they say when everyone is. You realize that power often disguises itself as kindness. And that's why awareness must always be your first discipline. When you train your perception, you stop walking into battles unarmed. You no longer respond to every whisper of flattery, every subtle dig, every provocation masked as humor. You see them all for what they are, strategies of ego. And when you see ego, you can sidestep it. Think about it. How many times have you argued with someone who didn't want resolution, only dominance? How many times have you wasted peace defending yourself to people who had already made up their minds? These are the traps the untrained mind falls into. The Stoic doesn't, because he knows that awareness is armor and ignorance is exposure. The moment you enter a room with clarity instead of anxiety, with observation instead of eagerness, you change the entire dynamic. You shift from participant to observer, from prey to strategist. The Stoic warrior doesn't react to the noise, he listens for the silence between words. That's where truth lives. I've been in those rooms myself. Boardrooms filled with quiet competition, conversations dripping with unspoken power moves. I've seen people use kindness like a weapon, pretending to uplift while secretly measuring you. I used to fall for it. I'd defend myself, explain, justify, until I realized every explanation was a surrender of power. That's when I began practicing what the Stoics called proairesis, the art of mastering your inner response before acting on the outer one. Once you understand this, something incredible happens. You stop being baited. You start seeing through words like smoke. You don't need to correct people's illusions. You simply stay still until they expose themselves. The manipulator always reveals their hand when the audience doesn't react. Silence is the mirror in which their intentions appear. This kind of awareness isn't cold. It's compassionate in a higher sense. You see people's games for what they are, defense mechanisms of fear, insecurity, and hunger for control. You don't hate them, you just don't join them. You choose to stay centered, focused on what is truly within your domain, your reason, your choices, your peace. And that's the quiet brilliance of Stoic awareness. It doesn't make you untouchable, it makes you unshakable. The noise of power plays can rage around you, but inside you remain still. Calm isn't weakness, it's strategy. Perception isn't paranoia, it's precision. Remember this the moment you start seeing, truly seeing, the masks drop. The noise fades. And in that silence, you realize you were never meant to play their game. You were meant to master yourself. Stay aware. Stay centered. Because from this awareness, every strategic move begins. Now, let's move deeper into the art of holding the frame while the world tries to pull it from your hands. Moving into the next chapter, imagine standing in the middle of a storm, wind howling, voices clashing, emotions spinning like debris around you. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants control. But while others shout over the thunder, you choose silence. You stand still, and suddenly the noise bends around you. That's the power of holding the frame. Power, in truth, isn't found in volume, it's found in composure. The Stoics called it mastery of the self, the art of keeping your inner world steady while the outer world trembles. Most people think control means dominating others, forcing opinions, or proving they're right. But Stoic control is quieter. It's the ability to remain the same person, no matter who enters the room. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Calm isn't the absence of conflict, it's the refusal to be reduced by it. When you hold your frame, you define the tone of every exchange. Others can raise their voices, twist their words, or play games, but they'll still orbit around your calm. I once watched a man lose everything in less than a minute. He was in a business meeting, brilliant but impulsive. Someone challenged his idea, not out of truth, but ego. You could see the moment it happened, the spark of offense, the tightening jaw. He snapped back, louder, sharper, trying to reclaim control through dominance. The room fell silent, and in that silence, he lost the respect he was trying to protect. His power melted into noise. Then I watched another man in that same room, older, quieter. When questioned, he didn't rush. He didn't defend. He simply looked at his challenger and said, "Let's examine that." His tone was even, his eyes steady. He didn't fight the attack, he reframed it. Within seconds, the energy shifted. The aggressor's confidence cracked under the weight of calm. Everyone could feel it. That's what it means to control the frame. You don't meet chaos with chaos. You stand where you are and let others exhaust themselves. The Stoic doesn't react to aggression, he observes it, then redirects it. The same principle applies to life beyond boardrooms, arguments with family, tension with friends, conflict in love. Every situation is an invitation to surrender your frame. People test it, not because they hate you, but because they're drawn to stability. They want to know if you truly stand where you claim to stand. Seneca once said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Adversity exposes your frame. It shows whether your calm is genuine or conditional. Anyone can seem wise when things are easy. True mastery appears when you're provoked. Picture yourself in a heated conversation. Someone interrupts you mid-sentence. The instinct is to speak louder, to regain space through noise. But what happens if you don't? If you simply pause, turn, and meet their eyes without a word? That pause, that stillness, it speaks louder than any comeback. It says, "I'm not moved by this." People fear silence because it reveals truth. It strips away performance. When you control the frame, silence becomes your ally. It magnifies presence. It forces others to face themselves. Most power plays collapse the moment you stop feeding them attention. There's a phrase Epictetus used often. It is not events that disturb us, but our opinion about them. To the Stoic, the frame is your opinion, your lens. It's how you interpret what's happening. If you believe someone's challenge threatens you, you'll feel attacked. But if you see it as a test of composure, you transform the encounter into practice. That's what Stoic warriors did daily, turning insult into training, turning difficulty into discipline. I remember once being in a room full of people arguing politics. Everyone's voice climbed higher, trying to drown the other. I stayed quiet. One man pointed at me and said, "Why don't you speak up? Don't you have an opinion?" I smiled and replied, "I prefer to keep it, not perform it." The table went silent, and in that silence, I learned something. People respect calm, not because it's louder, but because it's rarer. When you control the frame, you stop being reactive and start being deliberate. You learn to choose when to speak, when to step back, and when to end the game entirely. This isn't arrogance, it's discipline. You're not withdrawing from life, you're shaping it through presence. The Stoics saw composure as a kind of invisible gravity. It pulls situations into order without effort. Think of a commander on the battlefield. He doesn't shout with every arrow that flies. He moves with precision, conserving energy for decisive action. The world follows his stillness because it senses certainty. That's what calm truly is. Certainty without noise. The next time someone tries to pull you into chaos, remember this: whoever controls their breath controls the moment. Take one deep breath before responding. That single pause is the difference between reaction and command. When you hold your frame, you don't just protect your peace, you project power. And don't mistake this for coldness. Holding the frame isn't about superiority, it's about respect. Respect for yourself, for reason, for truth. You refuse to let your emotions be someone else's weapon. You don't shout because you don't need to. The person who stays grounded while others spiral becomes the anchor in every storm. When you begin to master this, people start to notice something different about you. They listen when you speak. They lower their tone around you. They weigh their words before they challenge you. That's not fear, it's recognition. They sense the quiet authority of someone who doesn't chase control but embodies it. Remember this: the one who can stay calm when everything else burns, wins, not because he fought harder, but because he refused to lose himself. The noise will come, the chaos will rise, but as long as you hold the frame, the world must bend to your composure. And from that composure, we move forward to the art of responding with strategy, not emotion, and learning the difference between reaction and true power. Advancing to the next stage, imagine this moment. You've just been insulted. Someone cuts deep, not by accident, but with precision. They wanted to see you flinch. They wanted to feel that small victory of making you react. Your heart races, heat rises in your chest, words form on your tongue. This is the edge where most people fall. But not you. Not if you've trained your mind in the way of the Stoics. Because this is where emotion ends and strategy begins. In every conflict, the one who reacts first loses control. The one who pauses wins it. The Stoics understood this centuries before we gave it a name. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." That line carries a brutal truth. No one can control you without your permission. The moment you hand them your reaction, you hand them your power. Most people think silence is surrender. It's not. It's calculation. Reaction is easy. It's primitive. Response takes mastery. The Stoic learns to let that first wave of emotion rise, then pass. Anger, offense, pride, they're just visitors. They come fast and loud, but they don't stay unless you feed them. Strategy begins when you can feel the fire without throwing it. I once saw this play out between two men who couldn't be more different. One was fiery, impulsive, quick to anger. The other, quiet, unassuming, but razor-sharp. They disagreed in front of a crowd. The first man's face turned red. His words came out like punches. The other simply listened, head slightly tilted, letting him burn out. When the storm passed, he spoke one sentence, calm and measured. And somehow, that single sentence erased 10 minutes of shouting. It wasn't louder, it was cleaner. It hit with precision, because it came from control, not chaos. That's what Stoic precision looks like. Every word chosen, not spilled. Every movement deliberate, not emotional. When you pause, you break the rhythm of the manipulator. They expect your defense. They crave your reaction, but when you give them calm, it starves them. It exposes their noise for what it is, desperation for control. The untrained mind feels that silence as weakness. The trained one knows it's a trap being dismantled. Seneca once warned, anger, if not restrained, is more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. Let that sink in. The words that offend you do far less damage than your own reaction to them. Think of it like this. Someone throws a spark at you. You can either drop it or you can cradle it until it burns through your peace. The Stoic drops it every time. There was a time in my life when I didn't. I used to fight every word, every slight, every injustice. I thought defending myself made me strong. It didn't. It made me predictable. The moment someone knew what triggered me, they owned me. It took years and a lot of silence to unlearn that. Now, when someone tries to provoke me, I see the intent, not the insult. I recognize the move, not the words. I ask myself, what do they want me to feel right now? And then I simply refuse to feel it. That refusal is power, because emotion is momentum, and every manipulator is trying to push you. The Stoic learns to absorb that push and stand still. It's not suppression, it's selection. You're choosing which emotions deserve your attention and which don't. You're not repressing anger, you're reassigning it. You use it when it serves reason, not pride. Picture a warrior in a duel. His opponent charges, sword swinging wildly. If he reacts to every motion, he dies. But if he reads the rhythm, if he waits for the right moment, one precise strike ends it. That's how you must handle words, conflict, confrontation. Don't swing with every insult. Observe, breathe, choose. Then strike with reason so sharp it can't be argued with. You'll notice something when you start responding this way. People begin to respect your silence. Your calm becomes unsettling. They'll say, you're too quiet, or you don't care. But that's because they no longer control you. You've stopped feeding their expectations. You've become unpredictable. And in a world addicted to reaction, unpredictability is power. There's a kind of peace that follows this practice. Not the soft peace of avoidance, but the hard peace of mastery. The peace that says, I can face chaos and remain unchanged. The Stoic doesn't run from conflict. He stands in it, unmoved. Because he's already won the only battle that matters, the one inside his own chest. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Every provocation is a chance to practice that truth. Every confrontation is a mirror showing you what still controls you. Don't resent those moments. Use them. They're your training ground. Once, someone accused me publicly of something I didn't do. My first instinct was to defend myself, to clear my name. But I remembered the Stoic lesson, truth needs no performance, so I said nothing. Days later, the truth surfaced on its own. My silence became proof of self-possession. I learned that day that sometimes your calm is your loudest defense. This way of living isn't easy. You'll feel the pull to respond, to explain, to correct. But every time you resist, you get stronger. Every time you let noise pass through you without breaking your stillness, you expand your control. You start to realize that real power isn't in what you can say, it's in what you no longer need to. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this: they're not testing your intelligence, they're testing your composure. The world doesn't need more clever reactions, it needs calm responses, and calm isn't passive, it's precision in motion. You'll notice the less you react, the more people reveal. The more you speak, the less you see. So stay quiet until your clarity forms words worth saying. Strategy isn't about withholding emotion, it's about directing it with purpose. Respond with reason, not rage, with silence that cuts deeper than words. Because in the game of power, the loud lose first. And as we move forward, you'll see what comes next. How protecting your energy, not fighting for attention, turns the tide completely in your favor. Now imagine this: someone walks into your day carrying chaos in their hands. They throw it at you disguised as conversation, sarcasm, concern, or subtle disrespect. You feel the pull to engage, to explain, to defend yourself. But this is where most lose the battle. They don't see that the moment they start reacting, they start feeding the very thing that drains them. This is where Stoic strength reveals itself, not in confrontation, but in conservation. Seneca once wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." He wasn't talking about travel. He was warning against scattering your mind, your energy, your peace. Every time you react to something that doesn't deserve your attention, you scatter yourself. You give away pieces of your stillness to people who never earned the right to hold it. The Stoic learns to guard this energy like a soldier guards fire in the cold. Because once the flame is gone, the world grows dark again. There's a truth most never learn: not every battle is meant to be fought. Some are meant to be starved. Power plays thrive on attention. Manipulators need your reaction like a flame needs oxygen. The more you argue, explain, or justify, the more air you give their fire. The Stoic understands this law of nature, so he does the opposite. He withdraws, not out of fear, out of strategy. Because when you stop feeding noise, it collapses under its own weight. I remember a time when someone I trusted tried to provoke me into anger. They wanted a scene, a reaction that would justify their story. Every part of me wanted to fight back, to prove them wrong, but I didn't. I said nothing. I walked away. They followed, trying harder, raising their voice. I kept walking, and somewhere in that silence, they lost their power. Because what they didn't realize was that their control depended entirely on my participation. That's what detachment truly is. Not coldness, not indifference. It's mastery of attention. You decide where your focus goes, who gets access to your peace, and when to close the gate. Epictetus said, "If you wish to be invincible, do not enter into contests where victory does not depend on you." Most conflicts are like that. They aren't about truth. They're about ego, and ego battles have no winners, only exhaustion. The art of withdrawing advantage begins with understanding that attention is currency. Everyone is trying to spend yours. The person gossiping about you, the one criticizing your choices, the one pretending to help while waiting for your reaction, they all want the same thing: your energy. But once you learn to detach from these provocations, something shifts. You stop being a participant in their play. You become the observer, calm and untouchable. They perform, you study. They shout, you think. They tire themselves, you remain centered. Picture a lake. When the wind blows, the surface ripples and distorts the reflection. But beneath, the water remains still. That's the Stoic mind. The world can scream, deceive, or provoke, but beneath the noise, your clarity remains untouched. You don't need to react to prove you understand. You don't need to respond to show you care. Calm is your evidence. Marcus Aurelius taught this discipline through his own silence. He led armies, faced betrayal, endured loss, and yet his writings are filled not with rage, but restraint. He wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion." Think about that. You don't owe the world your reaction. You don't owe everyone an answer. You owe yourself peace. The less you say, the more your presence speaks. The less you react, the more power you carry quietly within. This doesn't mean you become passive. The Stoic withdraws strategically, not permanently. He chooses his battles, his words, and his timing. Detachment is not the absence of feeling, it's the alignment of focus. You stop letting every emotion pull the strings of your actions. You step back, watch the storm, and move only when movement serves purpose. Because sometimes silence wins what shouting never could. I've seen people ruin opportunities by trying to prove points that didn't need proving. They explained themselves to those committed to misunderstanding. They defended their value to people too blind to see it. The Stoic refuses to waste that energy. He knows his worth, and therefore he doesn't announce it. When you stop trying to convince the world of your value, you finally begin to live it. There's a quiet rebellion in detachment. You stop dancing to the rhythm others set. You reclaim your tempo, and the world notices. Those who thrived on your reactions begin to feel powerless. They try harder to provoke you, but their words fall flat. Their tactics lose force, because they're fighting against emptiness now. You've withdrawn the only thing that gave them strength, your attention. Even in the ancient schools of Stoicism, this principle was central to the discipline of apatheia, freedom from being ruled by passion or reaction. Not numbness, but mastery. It's the state of being so rooted in your own center that nothing external can shake it. The Stoics didn't run from life, they stood firm in it, refusing to be moved by noise. And that's the power you reclaim when you choose silence over struggle, withdrawal over wasting yourself. Remember this, not every confrontation deserves an audience. Not every insult deserves defense. When you learn to walk away without anger, you've already won. Because true dominance doesn't come from defeating others, it comes from conserving yourself. The more you protect your energy, the more precise your power becomes. At this stage, the game of control changes entirely. You're no longer being moved, you're moving deliberately. You choose what enters your mind, what leaves your lips, what reaches your heart. And that is a kind of freedom few ever touch. When you withdraw from chaos, you don't disappear, you ascend. You rise above the noise into the quiet where clarity lives. And in that quiet, a new kind of strength begins to form. The kind that no insult, no manipulation, no chaos can touch. So protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. The one who can walk away without bitterness carries more power than the one who stays to prove a point. And from that stillness, we step into the next lesson: how to move with intent, not impulse, and transform your silence into strategic action. At this stage, the storm has passed, the noise has faded. You've learned when to stay silent and when to walk away. But calm isn't the end, it's the beginning. The Stoic doesn't stop at restraint. He acts, but with precision, every step deliberate, every move chosen. This is not reaction. This is intent. Picture a swordsman standing at dawn. The air is still. The ground carries the weight of battles long finished. He doesn't rush to strike. He waits. Every motion is measured. That's Stoic movement. Quiet, focused, unstoppable. In today's world, everyone runs. People speak before they think, chase before they understand. But speed isn't strength. It's noise disguised as progress. The Stoic moves differently. He doesn't rush to prove he acts with purpose. Marcus Aurelius said, "Let each action be done with purpose, as though it were your last." That's intent, nothing wasted. There's a story about a craftsman who repaired old watches. His hands steady, his focus absolute. When asked how he could work so slowly, he said, "When you know the value of time, you stop chasing it." The Stoic lives the same way. He moves in rhythm with reason, not urgency. Seneca wrote, "Life is long if you know how to use it." Most people waste it in reaction, arguing, defending, chasing validation. But the Stoic strikes once, clearly, because he's already thought deeply before acting. He knows restraint builds accuracy. Between what happens and what you do, there's space. That's where mastery lives. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Identity before motion, intention before impact, the undisciplined act to escape silence." The Stoic waits until clarity forms. I've seen people lose everything because they couldn't wait. They spoke when silence was stronger. They fought when patience would have won. The Stoic moves when timing aligns with truth. He acts not from pride, but precision, like an archer who releases only once and never misses. When you move with intent, people feel it before you speak. You carry calm authority. You don't need to control the room, your composure does. Every step lands with certainty. Every word has weight. You don't chase outcomes, you embody them. Stillness isn't weakness, it's readiness. The Stoic's calm prepares him for decisive motion. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That's Stoic intent. Less noise, more action. You move not because emotion drives you, but because reason tells you it's time. Intent brings peace that reaction never will. You're no longer pulled by emotion or noise. You move like water, gentle but unstoppable. The Stoic knows direction matters more than speed, and mastery comes not from doing more, but from doing what's right. So when the world pressures you to rush, pause. When someone provokes you, breathe. And when your moment comes, act calmly, clearly, and with conviction, because true power isn't found in constant motion, it's found in precision. The Stoic doesn't act to impress. He acts because virtue commands it. He waits, observes, and strikes once, with purpose. That's the final discipline, to move with intent, not impulse. To speak less, mean more. To live not by noise, but by reason. True strength doesn't shout. It moves quietly, guided by clarity and intent. Each time you choose calm over reaction, patience over pride, you step closer to the discipline that defines a Stoic mind. The world will always test you, but your power lies in how still you can remain before you move. Let others rush and argue. You move with precision, not noise. If this message resonated with you, take a breath, reflect, and subscribe to stay on this path of inner mastery. Share your thoughts in the comments with 2 words: stay calm. Remember, composure is not weakness, it's control in its purest form. Keep building that silence inside you until nothing external can shake it. Because once your mind is steady, every move becomes powerful. Stay grounded, stay clear, and get ready for what comes next. Your next lesson in quiet strength begins soon.